The old man did not flinch when the first outlaw shoved him, even though the force should have knocked him into the dirt. Instead, he shifted his weight like a tree bending in wind, boots sinking slightly into the frozen mud, eyes calm and unreadable. And that calm unnerved them more than any threat ever could. Because men who beg are predictable, but men who are silent are not. And as the outlaws laughed and circled him, mocking his age, his hunched shoulders, the way his hands looked rough and scarred like they had been carved by decades of labor, none of them noticed how his breathing slowed, how his spine straightened just a little, how the past began to rise inside him like embers waking beneath ash. Memories of dust storms and blood-red sunsets, of drums echoing through canyons, of oaths sworn not in words but in scars, and when the knife finally pressed against his ribs and tore open the brittle fabric of his coat, the laughter died in a single breath, because there, beneath weathered skin darkened by sun and time, lay the tattoo, bold and unmistakable, lines etched deep not by ink alone, but by ceremony and pain. A symbol older than any law these men had ever broken, a mark whispered about in outlaw camps and border towns, the mark of a tribe that did not forget and did not forgive. And the man holding the knife froze so completely that his fingers trembled as if winter itself had climbed into his bones, because he had seen that symbol once before, years ago on the arm of a warrior who walked through gunfire, like rain, and left an entire gang buried under stones with no names. And the old man's voice finally came, low and steady, carrying the weight of 1,000 stories that never needed to be told, telling them they should step back, telling them this was not the road they wanted to walk. But fear had already taken hold, spreading through the group like a sickness, one man backing away, another whispering a prayer, another dropping his weapon into the dirt as if it had burned him. And when the leader tried to laugh it off, tried to remind them that this was just an old man with a picture on his skin, the old man turned his head slowly and met his eyes, and in that gaze was not anger, but certainty, the kind that comes from surviving what should have killed you many times over, the kind that says consequences are not threats, they are promises. And in that moment the leader saw flashes he could not explain, horses running through smoke, shadows moving across canyon walls, men falling without ever seeing who struck them, and his bravado cracked, voice faltering as he demanded to know who the old man really was. And the answer, when it came, was not a name but a story, spoken quietly, of a boy taken from his people, of wars fought in places maps forgot, of brothers buried without markers, of a vow made to protect the last road that still mattered. And the old man finished by telling them they could leave now, that this was the only mercy would be offered, and one by one they obeyed, retreating like animals who had wandered too close to a fire they did not understand, until the road was silent again, the wind carrying away their fear, and the old man pulled his coat closed, the tattoo hidden once more, shoulders settling back into their familiar stoop as if nothing had happened at all. Yet the land itself seemed to remember, and as he continued down the road, alone beneath a fading sky, the truth lingered in the air like a warning. Some warriors grow old, but they never stop being dangerous, and if this story stirred something inside if you felt the power of hidden strength and forgotten honor, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that legends don't always shout. Sometimes they walk quietly, waiting for the moment they are needed most. The night after the outlaws fled was colder than the one before. The kind of cold that seeps into bones and pulls memories out with it. And the old man sat beside a small fire just beyond the bend of the road, feeding it twigs with the same careful patience he once used to teach boys how to hold a blade without fear, his face lit by flickering orange as the past finally stopped, a knocking, and walked straight in. Because fear travels faster than horses, and by dawn, the story of the tattoo had already reached ears that did not tremble so easily. Men who knew exactly what that symbol meant, and who had spent years hunting its last bearer, not for money, but for unfinished business. And as the old man rose with the sun and continued his journey toward the canyon where stone pillars stood like silent witnesses, he felt it before he saw it, the shift in the land, the way birds went quiet, the way dust lingered in the air too long, which told him he was no longer alone. And when the riders appeared on the ridge, disciplined and deliberate, not laughing, not careless, he knew this was the reckoning he had avoided for decades, the final echo of a war everyone else believed was over. And the leader of those riders dismounted slowly, respect in his posture even as his hand stayed close to his weapon, calling the old man by a name no one had spoken aloud in 30 years, a name that belonged to a younger body and a fiercer world. And the old man did not deny it, because denial is for those still running. Instead, he answered with a nod, eyes sharp now, back straight, the years falling away as the warrior returned fully at last. And what followed was not a battle of speed, but of understanding. Words exchanged heavy with history, accusations laid bare like old wounds, until the leader finally lowered his weapon, admitting what all of them had come to realize on the ride out, that killing this man would not end the legend but ignite it, that the tattoo was not just ink, but a promise carried by bloodlines and land itself. And so they did the one thing their enemies never expected. They stepped aside, clearing the path to the canyon, acknowledging that some guardians are chosen by time, not tribes or titles. And as the old man walked past them, staff tapping stone, he felt peace settle in his chest for the first time in years, knowing the road was finally safe enough for him to lay his burdens down. And when he reached the canyon and touched the markings carved long before his birth, he smiled faintly, because strength had never been about youth or muscle, but about carrying responsibility when no one is watching. And as the sun climbed and his shadow stretched across the rock, the story ended, not with death but with legacy, a reminder that true power reveals itself only when underestimated. And if this ending moved you, if you believe the strongest souls often hide in plain sight, subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories of hidden legends, timeless courage, and the quiet power that changes everything. Years passed after the canyon morning, but the land never forgot what happened there, and neither did the people who lived along the broken roads and quiet valleys, because stories have a way of growing roots when they are true. And the tale of the weak old man with the tribal tattoo spread far beyond whispers, turning into a warning told to reckless boys and greedy men, a reminder that age is not the end of strength, but its refinement. And in a small settlement near the river, where travelers rested and fires burned, lo, children often spoke of an old figure who appeared when trouble came too close, a man who walked slowly, leaned on a staff, and yet made violence step back without raising his voice. And no one could ever say for sure if it was the same man or only the echo of him, because legends do not age the way people do. They simply change form. And one evening, when a new group of armed strangers rode into town thinking fear would make them kings, an elder woman smiled softly and told them they were standing on protected ground. And when they laughed and asked by whom, she only pointed to the hills where the sun was sinking. And something in that silence made their laughter die, because deep down, even the cruelest men recognize sacred ground when they feel it under their boots. And far away beyond the canyon, the old warrior, older now, slower still, sat beneath a cottonwood tree, eyes closed, listening to the wind carry distant voices, knowing his work was finally done, knowing the tattoo on his skin no longer needed to be seen because its meaning had been carried forward into fear, respect, and restraint. And as his breathing softened and the land wrapped around him like an old friend, the world gained what it always needs most. Not another fighter, but a story that teaches humility. And if this final chapter reminded you that true power lives beyond appearances and that legends walk among us unnoticed, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because every story shared keeps wisdom alive, and every listener becomes part of the legend.